Hey everyone, and welcome to the Beyond Sundays podcast. We're so excited you're joining us for week 3 of Wild Goose Chase. And this week we're going to be talking about a really important topic, the cage of routine. And I don't know about you, but I'm a girl who likes her routines. They're comfortable for me. But we know that following the Spirit means that so many times we've got to break out of that cage of routine and that comfort zone to be able to follow where the Spirit is leading. And so joining with me today is Geoffrey Turner. Hey, how you doing?
Hola, excited to be here.
I'm excited you're here too. Thanks for doing this with me. And joining with us today, we have a very special couple that we just adore and love so much. Keith and Megan Roberson. How are you guys doing today?
Awesome.
Doing great.
Great, really grateful to be with you guys.
We love y'all too. We're so glad to sit down with you guys.
I know, even if it's over Zoom, this is really special time. This feels really just sweet to Jeff and I spirit because we have known you guys for a long time. But could you share who
Yeah,
you
I've known Keith for I don't know, 30 years.
I know, probably. I was about to say because we go way, 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 way back, all the way back.
Keith's old enough that his high school basketball team practiced outside. So
And after we moved from outside, we practiced in a gym with carpet in it. So
with carpet, yeah.
that was great.
Well, could y'all share a little bit about who you are, where you're living, what season of life you're in, and just how you're connected to Beltway Park Church?
You bet. Well, we are in Franklin, Tennessee, just south of Nashville, and have been here for the last 8 years pastoring New River Church, and been an incredible journey. We've got 4 kiddos.
4 teenagers.
Yeah, 4 teenagers. Yeah. So our first just went into his freshman year at college,
Yep.
and then the three others are all 2 years apart. So it's been like full on life from the minute that we've had them. So it's been pretty fun.
We just celebrated 20 years married.
Yeah, 20 years
Yep.
anniversary. So it's been really sweet, and we feel really grateful. And of course, our whole lives and marriage and family were started in Abilene,
Abilene, Texas.
while we got to be a part of the Beltway family, and incredibly grateful for that. I came on staff, and we were married within 6 months of that, and then of course had all 4 of our kids, and so
Geoffrey, your parents did our premarital counseling.
Oh, did they?
They
yeah,
did.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Randy and Bobby.
So we've had so much of our life was established getting to be a part of the community at Beltway and in Abilene,
Yeah.
and all of the beautiful things God was pouring into us in that season. So, and in fact, that was so much what we wanted to be able to carry as God asked us to step out, to leave, and to come and be a part of what He's doing here in Franklin.
Yeah, our hearts feel very forever knit, beautifully knit to Beltway. It's been one of the most striking and beautiful things to me is to be able to share with all of our new friends in Tennessee how there's this relational bridge that has continued between New River and Beltway all these years. It's as a church, as individual friends, you guys have just loved us so well. And we still feel covered and loved so much by our church family in Abilene.
Yeah.
So we just feel deeply connected, and
Yep.
yeah, moments like these are really special.
Yeah.
Really grateful.
Well,
Absolutely.
let's talk routine.
For sure.
That's what we're gonna hit this week. Just talking about how routine can be a difficult thing, but also a good thing. And your whole life was, I mean, you had done college stuff here, Keith, and then you were at the time you were the North Campus pastor. Your kids
Right.
were growing up. You had family close to you, and then you decided to leave the church that you'd been at for a long time and go
Yeah.
pastor a church that was in a very different spot, and move your whole family from where y'all
Yeah.
been forever to all the way to Franklin, which Franklin's awesome, but it's not where you were.
For
So
sure.
talk a little bit about that journey. Like I remember it when y'all were beginning it, and remember feeling like, as somebody who, like Sarah said, I also love routine. And so, you step outside of we've done this, and this is our path in life. And then all of a sudden it's like God said, maybe not. So
Yeah. Well, even as you say, we decided to do this, we really felt like the Lord was calling us out to do it, because I don't know that there was any real reason to leave our routine or to leave Beltway because of the life we were experiencing.
Mm.
So in many ways, it was like the Lord really uprooting some things because he wanted to do some things in us. We certainly believe that he wanted to do some things here, but that was a little bit of what that was about. I mean, the truth be told, when we were thinking about this, Megan and I had talked about leading a church, like maybe on our first date.
I think it was our first date.
Yeah.
I'd asked him, like, what do you want to do with like the rest of your life? We just went deep really quick. And so, yeah, we talked about it from that moment, and it was kind of always like on the back burner a little bit,
Yeah.
kind of just never fully absent from like our spirit, if that makes any sense. It was like in conversations we would always have through the years, we felt very rooted and called to Beltway. And then there was a time where the Lord just kind of turned up the heat, and it was like he was kind of nudging us out of the nest.
Yeah.
And so that was the only reason why. There was no good reason on paper, like you said, to leave.
Yeah.
Everything that was so wonderful.
For sure. As good Texans, we never think we're going to leave Texas, and nor did I ever actually expect to leave Texas. Even when we started to feel the call to step out, to take what had been imparted to us and to take it somewhere else, and to leave kind of everything we'd known, there was this kind of burning that the Lord was putting in us just to say, okay, we'll do that. We'll step out. So we didn't ever expect to leave, but it certainly was something that the Lord was putting in our heart. And then he continued to affirm and reaffirm as we, brought this before the community that, we were a part of at Beltway. So,
yeah.
And since you've done it, everything's been real easy, right? Since you took that step.
no problems, zero
We're
problems.
basically professional change.
Yeah. In fact, one of the beautiful things that God always does, and we certainly experienced this personally, was we believe the Lord was asking us to risk and to step out, to do a work here. But the Lord was also asking us to risk and step out because he was wanting to do some work in us.
Yeah.
And we have been as shaped and as changed and as moved as anything God has done in the scope of our church and the community that we're pastoring here. He has done as much changing and transformation in us personally.
Yeah.
And so God's always doing, 10,000 things. And so he did call us to come and love and care for and rebuild this church, but he also was really wanting to uproot some broken things in us and certainly in me, and just to establish some fresh things, honestly, that we could not just have for ourselves, but pass on to our own children. And so I feel really grateful, but it was really hard at times, very, very hard at times.
Yeah. I use the word burning, like what was burning in our heart. And that word comes back to me as you ask that question about how easy it was, because like the refiner's fire is what comes to mind. It's like, if we could sum up the last 8 years since we left Texas, it's like he's been burning off and purifying what didn't belong in us and in the church and just in our marriage and our family. I mean, yeah. So that's the easiest way I can boil it down is, it doesn't feel good to be in the fire, but it's what you want in, the land of risk with God. Ultimately, we don't want to shrink back from those things when we know he's calling us to do that, but it does not mean it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it reminds me of that passage of scripture I have been thinking about a lot lately. It's Isaiah 43:18-19. It says, "Forget the former things. Don't dwell on the past. See, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I'm making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." And I just love that this is a picture of what it looks like to release what has been. God never wants us to stay stuck. He wants us to continue to grow and be transformed. I think one of you used that word just a moment ago. Because God is always doing something new, because he's a God who promises renewal and fresh starts, and being his kids, he's like, you can trust me in this. I've got new things for you. And even in the middle of hard places, the imagery here is that he makes a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. I love that picture. And so I wanted to kind of bring the conversation to the reason why I asked you guys in the first place to be on this podcast, because we can talk about the move and the difficulty in the season of like stepping out and moving to Tennessee from Texas, which was huge. I mean, that's like a big move, but you have kids, right? And that was it had an impact on them too. And I was able to hear about that in the sense of like when you guys came down to Texas the last time. And Keith, you preached an incredible sermon. We're going to link it in the chat or the description of this podcast. But you guys shared a story about your oldest son, Luke, who was about to go to college, and he had plans to have a certain major and then felt like the Lord was calling him to do something riskier. And he had a conversation with some men in his life that hold him accountable and are really who have that authority to speak into his life, and just invited him to think about, well, is this the safe option, or do you feel like there's something that the Lord might be calling you to that might look different? And he spent time to pray through it. And we had that conversation, like Luke asked the Lord and prayed through that. And he was like, I think I have chosen the safe route. And I think God's really calling me to something more, something riskier. And so he made the switch to now a music major. Is that still the correct? Yeah.
Mhm.
And what I thought about in that is, I mean, you guys have raised children who are doing what you're doing. I mean, stepping out in faith and choosing to follow the Holy Spirit no matter the cost. And that cost sometimes is comfort, right? That cost sometimes is what's safe and feels like not less risky. And so I would love to hear from y'all's perspective, like, how has this played out and how have you seen this in your children? Like, inviting them into that space of going, no, we're not going to play it safe as a family. We're going to continue to follow the Holy Spirit regardless of where he leads, because you've raised a son who had made that decision. And I just love to hear from y'all what that's looked like in your family.
Yeah.
You want me to speak?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just in a nutshell describe that day. He came and he said, I'm feeling kind of this like hesitation about moving forward with basically a degree that looked like it would earn the dollars that he, you know, even living in a place like Nashville, there's a lot of talk about that, right? It's like, you want to be able to have provision, and like, there's a lot of temptation toward that, I think, even growing up here. Anyway, so he had kind of just been traveling down that direction of what could I do that would make sure that I can provide for my family. And long story short, he just ultimately just had this kind of like unrest about it, and kind of was just feeling down about it. And Luke is so good. I credit Keith to a lot of this. He's so good as a young man to be able to express what's going on in his heart. And there's a really sweet like culture of communication that is like open in our family that I feel like as a dad, Keith's really cultivated with him.
Well, and it took a little time to get there, but I do want to just speak to this before you finish the story, because part of just the like real life rhythm is like, okay, what are you actually feeling? So if we're going to be present with the Holy Spirit, then you actually have to be able to be real with what's going on internally inside of you. And if you feel a bunch of unhealthy shame because you're afraid of something, or you're like maybe thinking you're taking, in this case, maybe there's something that's burning his heart to maybe do music, but he doesn't feel like that's the safe. Like, if you can't express that and say that out loud, you're already kind of behind the eight ball. And so by the grace of God over the last few years, I've actually been on a journey personally of learning how to like, what's actually going on? Like, it's so easy to keep your head down and just keep moving forward. That's how sometimes we find comfort in the routines. And I kind of have lived a lot of years doing that. And I've had to awaken a little bit. So she's crediting me, but really Megan has lived this way her whole life. I've lived it like over the last like couple of years, but like learning, okay, this is what's actually going on. So then if that's what's going on in me, okay, God, what do you have to say about that? Like, Spirit of the living God, you have something to say about this, either fear or anger or hurt or whatever I'm experiencing. And that is what has given a pathway to going, okay, Spirit of God, what do you say about what's going on here. So that was, I just want to say that out loud because Megan kind of lives that way all the time, which is amazing. And she's really been a lot of the voice for our kids, like learning to like, okay, this is going on right now. All right, Spirit, like God, what do you say?
Yeah. Well,
So,
and so one of the practical things parenting wise that we've always told the kids is we're going to follow where God's peace is. And so if there's not peace moving forward, that's our signal to wait. And so that's the way Luke approached me that day. We had a conversation with him the night before, but he came to me. Oh, did we lose him?
good.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. He came to me and he said, Mom, I'm not feeling peace moving forward. And I said, okay, well, and so we just made space and he just outlined, there was actually 3 big decisions in his life that week. And I won't, share all of his personal details about what they were, but he definitely was on the precipice of either this trajectory or that trajectory. And with the one he was going down, he did not have peace. And he said, but on paper, it looks like it makes sense, but I just don't know if I'm living the fullness of what God's calling me to, if I was going to trust him, like to give me my heart's desires and do something that feels more risky. I just don't know that I'm doing that. And so I said, well, what would it look like to be setting sail on the sea of risk with God? Like, what would that look like for you? And he said, if that's my goal, it would look like switching my major and making this decision and that decision. And he all in 1 week. I mean, I think he just needed us to just
Sure.
come behind him and be the wind in his sails a little bit. That's the privilege we get as moms and dads, is just to be that representation of the Holy Spirit. Sometimes we can't be the Holy Spirit for them, but sometimes that voice just going like, go for it. And then I want to speak to what you said a minute ago, crediting me about being risky my whole life, because I am wired as the more risky one, but sometimes it can come with some impulse and naivety. I won't go off on that bunny trail, but like our different wirings are very important. And I think the main thing of what Keith was saying is to bring the fullness of your heart to the Lord, put it all on the table and let him speak his word over it. Just don't shy back from that, I think, is the main point. And so
I will say there one like small thing we did do as a family. We would take regular opportunities, and I don't want to overstate it, but semi-regular opportunities to like pause and learn how to listen. So even like
yeah.
New Year's Day, we would do like, okay, what's the Lord want to speak over us for this year? And just we're all sitting in there, maybe put a song of worship on, and then just spend a few minutes just saying, okay, well, Lord, what are you saying? And so whether it's a picture or words or a song or whatever, and then letting our kids like practically like, okay, we're just going to listen for a minute. So
Even if it felt really boring,
yeah, or
it's
even
like
awkward.
yeah, or
I mean,
awkward. It's like, let's just wait on him because he has great things to say to us.
yeah.
And so yeah, we did that.
So just little like small like practical practices to help prime the pump for like, let's learn how to be present with God.
Yeah.
And I think what y'all are saying is, I mean, it's so good, because what you're doing is you're giving language to how you know it's God moving in your life, or nudging you out of that comfort zone. Y'all have helped put some language around that with your kids, of like you mentioned earlier, like the burning in your heart, or if you're going to walk forward, do you feel God's peace? If you don't feel God's peace, then it's time to wait. Like putting those kinds of like language that's easy to understand. Sometimes it's hard to say just, I mean, I don't know, Geoffrey, maybe you could speak into this too, but sometimes it's hard just to tell your kids, hey, just follow the Holy Spirit, because it's hard for me too. That's sometimes hard
That's right.
too.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, yeah.
Well, and then I think you run into this tension, like you said, we want to go where God's peace is. The problem is stepping outside of routine often can feel like the opposite of peace. So you sitting down your kids and telling them, hey, we're going to move from where you have all your friends and the only place you've ever known, and we're going to move somewhere different, and new schools and new friends, different church. And I think sometimes we don't fully understand what God's peace even means, because that doesn't, in the natural, that does not feel peaceful. That feels
For
like
sure.
the opposite of peace. And so I think if we can circle back to like when you were, I think y'all modeled that well for your kids, but how did you like have conversations with your kids about that? If that, like, I love the language of, we want to go where God's peace is, but for a 10-year-old, which Luke was 10 when y'all
Yeah.
left.
Yeah.
So for a 10-year-old to understand going where God's peace is means leaving all of my friends and everything I've ever known. How did you kind of explain that to them, and then even just kind of model it for them, or ongoing conversations?
Yeah, great question. Well, I think as we were stepping into that, we sort of, I think, began inviting them into the idea of, um, what would it be like if we moved to a different place, and even just beginning to have some beginning dialogue. So as we were feeling the possibility of moving out, I think we began to have just some like subtle conversations. So it's like not rip the Band-Aid off, like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
to begin to like prime the pump with them on like, okay, well, what could this be like, and maybe do some imagining with them and some thinking about that and processing a little bit about. I feel like that was part of what we did early
Yeah,
on.
and the thing about it, to speak to what you were just saying, Geoffrey, about what peace feels like, I remember what it was like for me thinking about jumping out to come move. Like, if you're just gonna put that isolated moment of our life like up on the table, like leaving Texas to come to Tennessee. The peace for me felt like obedience, because I knew that to not look at it or surrender to it would have been disobedient, and that would have sent me into a place of unrest where I would not have had peace.
It's good.
So it's like
That's
we
good.
were we were also very unified. I think that's another big thing, is
For
when
sure.
you know the Lord is leading, when it's just on you as a family, like especially between us, it was like we both knew there was a knowing in our spirit about it. And so I feel like that brought a lot of peace to the kids too, because they didn't see us arguing, or,
Yeah.
it was a spirit of joy and adventure and anticipation. Like we were on the same page going forward. And so I don't remember them feeling a ton of trepidation. I do feel like some of the grieving of leaving everything familiar happened after we got here versus before. So it happened a little bit more on the back end for our kids.
That's good. That was true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was that thing of like, all right, why did we move? Eventually, because kids' attention span is not that long. They were 4, 6, 8, and 10 were their ages when we moved. And so there were just like small doses of conversation they could even have like capacity for at that age. But like when we would boil it down, ultimately it would be boiled down to this was the Lord pursuing something for us.
Yeah.
And this was us stepping out into it in obedience. And so we always want to obey what the Lord said. And it might feel exciting, it might feel terrifying, like what you were saying, like what does peace feel like? And so in that moment, it felt like obedience.
Yeah. 100%. And we will all very likely be asked to obey, and there will be an experience of what I'd say is healthy fear,
Yeah.
which is, okay, you're asking me to do something that in my natural state, I like wouldn't either pick, or I wouldn't do, or it's not natural to me, or it's not how I grew up. Like the Lord's maybe wanting to rewrite something in your whole family story, maybe everything you've ever known before. And so that's a natural experience to have. Like, oh man, this is scary, risky. You might use words like, I feel anxiety or something like that about it. And that's the opportunity you actually have to say, okay, Lord, is this you?
Yeah.
And really like lean in. And this, by the way, brings it back around to how incredibly important community becomes. Because as we were feeling this stirring personally, we're in a community now that we can begin to go, will you pray with us and see if the Lord is speaking? So it's not just now us, but now we've got really trusted people, because we've chosen to be in this community, this church life family, who care about us as much as we care about them, and being able to see them affirm and encourage and say, yeah, we sense the Lord is doing this also. So we're not even on an island in any way. We're like with other people navigating this. So that's really helpful also as you're navigating, like, how do we practically step into this thing called obedience, even if it feels risky or scary at times. It's actually like, we feel the rest and the goodness of God on it.
Yeah. I'd love to know, because y'all been there 8 years. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear some stories of how Holy Spirit has shown up in ways that reminded you that this was him that was all him. Ways that affirmed in your spirit, we did it. We did the thing he called us to, and we're still saying yes, and we're in this like 100%.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear some stories. So anything that comes to mind of just, yeah, we know that we are firmly planted where God has us and our family for this season.
It's on my heart to speak to a difficult moment that led me back to that place, because I think, Keith spoke to the unity and the community and the yes. And, we were just like moving forward and had what felt like the wind at our back. And then we got here. And I think sometimes when, we realize God's already gone before us and he's already seen the road down ahead of us, and he's already prepared the way for us. Sometimes, sometimes he makes the things that he's asking us to do radically, radically clear, because he knows that we're going to get down the road and need to remember how radically, radically clear he made it, because it's really hard. And so we did have this like backing and encouragement and unity and stuff like on the front end. And then we got to Tennessee, and there were moments where we felt very, very lonely here. And we had to, just because of things that were happening with our church, things that we were experiencing that were, in COVID, when everybody like shut down and it's like all of our activities ceased. And then we realized what's actually bubbling to the surface is what's really been dormant, and it's like things just started to come up for people that maybe were covered up by activity or convenience or whatever. We were experiencing that when we moved here, and it's like things that were not the healthiest in our marriage, like our communication patterns,
Sure.
things in the culture. Essentially, we just started to realize God was in pursuit of us all this time. He's been so in pursuit of us. He knew what was better for us was to travel out with him and do this. And he's going to be with us in every second. But there's a lot uncovered that we're now going to need to either, put that question on the table again, like,
Right.
are we still supposed to be here? And so I did a lot of that. There was a couple years in the like maybe year 3, year 4, I started to experience some fear of, did we miss God? I wish that weren't. I wish I could say that I just sailed the sea of faith the whole way through and that it was just so easy. And I just, but like I really wrestled, and because it got so intense and for multiple reasons, that I put that question back on the table with God. And I've learned one of the things that he's instilled in me that I'm so grateful for is that I've learned that it's just safest, like he said before, to just bring all of it out into the light with God and reevaluate with the Lord. Like, don't be afraid to do that, because if he has called you to something, he will reestablish that call, and it'll come with more anchoring and more encouragement for that season that you're in. And so it's like, it gave me a chance as I did that with God, just to kind of like, just be laid bare before the Lord, really, and just go like, are you still asking us to stay here? And the Lord not only said yes, but then he strapped new promises on in that season, because I was willing to like just let my heart be really tender with him. And I'm so grateful, because I think the temptation would have been to just like shut down, kind of like just grin and bear it. I think the enemy tries to heap shame on us when we ask those sorts of questions, like if we don't handle it perfectly or whatever. And so yeah, it was messy.
Yeah.
There's been messy moments, and I feel like every time the messy moments have come, the Lord just doubles down on, yes, I did ask you to come. And for me, it's come through, I mean, nothing short of miraculous, like signs, wonders. Like he has done things where I'm like, okay, he knows how anchored I need to be in this, and he's shown up and affirmed again that we're supposed to stay on this assignment that he called us out to.
Yeah. I was not as willing to ask that question, just being gut level honest. I was like, no, I'm going to keep my head down and just keep bull rushing forward, which is maybe a way to live, but not a very spirit filled way to live, just being honest. So it was like, no, God called us here, so I'm just going to plow forward, which maybe there's some sentiment in there that is like, we're just going to keep being faithful, and maybe that's how I couched it. But a lot of it was like, I was just way too afraid to actually ask that question in those early years. Like, we got to gut this thing out. We're here.
And you felt responsible too, as
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a provider for a family and all that kind of
For
stuff.
sure.
But yeah.
And so it was just a scary question. But
Mhm.
what Megan's saying is true, which is for me personally, would have been a lot more encouragement, affirmation, had I been as willing to ask that question, because the Lord did have for us to be here and to stay here. But rather than like gutting it out in your routine, taking the time to be willing to be disrupted by whatever fear or whatever, maybe a question you're afraid of asking God, is a way better way to do that. And by the grace of God, again, part of his journey in our lives is to shape us, transform us.
Yeah.
I've had way more grace and faith to ask those questions and be willing to show up to that, which has been hugely helpful for us and even in our own marriage, but then how we parent our kids and like helping our kids, like, okay, if something's going on, let's bring it to the Lord. So rather than just kind of keeping your head down, to just keep moving forward. So I've learned quite a bit in that over the
I remember calling Keith a few years into it, and I was, "Hey dude, what's going on? How are you?" And he goes, "I'm sitting in a dark room looking out the window." And I was like, "Oh boy." He's going through it.
Yeah.
But so you make this step and you walk, your kids are watching the difficulty at times.
Yeah.
How do you then help them in their teenager brains at that point? They're starting to become teenagers, at least Luke would have been, Anna Grace would have been.
Yeah.
How do you then help them to see that the step that God called you out of your routine was still good, even in the hard?
Yeah. I will first say that God had promises for them. This was one of the things that we had before we moved here. One of the promises we felt like was really anchoring for us is that the move that we were making was as much about all 6 of us as it was about this role that I was in particular taking at this church. So that was like on us, and we had that, I mean, really held on to that promise.
Yeah.
So that as we were navigating through that, we were able to be present with them as they're living their lives and going through their challenges, and just believing that God had big things for them to be able to experience and to see. So like learning how to be really present with their own challenges and that kind of thing. And I feel like there's like appropriate level of just like sharing the hardships of what we're going through, but also like they didn't need to know everything that was going on. So we had to find a balance of like healthy sharing what we were navigating through or going through, because the church world, this is also their spiritual family as well. So we wanted them to have a healthy experience within church.
Yeah.
So there's healthy sharing of that, but then it's like when life is happening for them, really helping them try to get their heart and head around what the Lord is doing for them. Because there was, I mean, we could speak, there's a couple of years it felt, I think Luke really, he's doing so amazing now. He had a couple of years where it's like he did not feel like he had any friends. I mean, after we got here, it was, I think you had even a specific moment where like he was really struggling for friends.
There's and I know that he would be okay with me sharing this because he shared it before publicly. But there's a really beautiful lake out closer to Nashville called Radnor Lake, and it has this trail that you can walk all around. It's just so beautiful. And so there was one day where he was, I think probably 11 or 12. It was a couple years after we moved here. And he just had this moment where he was really emotional, saying like, I feel very lonely. And so he was, just expressing that to us. Like school had been a challenge because we had interesting school situation. And so we stopped right there on the spot and we prayed and we asked God to bring friends into his life. Like we literally, it was this really sweet moment where I feel like it was a benchmark moment for Luke because he's never forgotten it all these years. Right. And then recently he went with a big group of friends out to Radnor. He forgot that it was going to even be out there. And he, came home and he's like, Mom, I had a moment with God today where, he was out with his college buddies planning this worship thing, and it was at Radnor Lake, and it was just this huge crowd of people. And his testimony was like, look what God has done. And it was just so special, like all these years later, to see that God, has answered things. And that's the thing is when God is actually asking you to do something, the provision he makes the way for is miraculous. I mean, he has grace on our kids that is beyond us. I mean, we did the best we could in terms of stewarding it, but I mean, to be honest, like a lot of it is just God's radical grace on them. One of the things that happens when you move across the country with your family is it's just like it's go team, you know, because you don't
Sure.
you don't have like a historical, you know, community with you to lean back on. And
Right.
so it's just different. But yeah, there's been lots of little stories like that they could testify to. So
Well, that's amazing. I know there's probably been plenty of opportunities for even your life now in Nashville to be disrupted somehow by things that you didn't plan for. So I would love to hear maybe an unexpected way that plans were disrupted or you didn't expect daily life to go a certain way, but then whatever that disruption actually led to deeper faith. Is there something that comes to mind?
Yeah. You into about AG?
yeah,
Yeah.
I think Anna Grace, we had Anna Grace had a very serious medical emergency. And it disrupted our spring break. We were like literally on the front end of spring break, and we ended up not resting over spring break. We ended up in the emergency room. And it just kind of unlocked a lot of revelation about just a condition, it's a very rare condition she has that's been there from birth that we never knew about. And it's continually a very difficult thing that she has to deal with in life. And so it was this moment of like, okay, this is not what we expected, you know, for her. And I'm so excited for her in the years to come to share this part of her journey, because she's chosen to not serve this condition she has. She's chosen to let this condition serve to bring her revelation about who God is. And that's her choice. I mean, we can encourage her all day long, but she's a tenacious and courageous one.
For sure. But it was a really challenging right after that. And there was some, I think, real things that cropped up even in her heart. So again, you're like just going along, going to school, doing all these things. And then all of a sudden, there's this new situation going on that she's having to grapple with and wrestle with. And there were certainly lots of moments to just having to let her process through what was she's walking through, what she's feeling.
And being so young, you know,
Really
12 years old
Yeah.
when this came up, and it's really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And so it's still really hard, and we are still wrestling with that. But it's beautiful because I feel like for her, I'm watching her reach for God in it, and
Yeah.
she's letting her heart stay tender with the Lord. And so we're so proud of her. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was definitely a disruption, and it continues to be a disruption in her
Yeah.
life. And so yeah, we're still walking through that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I had this question drop in my spirit and it's not on your paper. So I'm just going to ask it and we can cut it if we need to.
Go for it.
You know, you're 8 years in and it's been a journey with highs and lows and mountains and valleys and everything in between. And I just had this question drop in my spirit to ask you guys, of all the things that you look back on and all of the hope that you have for the future, has it all been worth it? Would you say it's been worth it to follow God in this?
Like 1000%. Yes.
I was going to say, if Keith says no right here, we have a problem.
Yeah, right. Like it's so 1000%. Only because he is the safe place.
Yeah.
So you know, our church family is a great safe place. That, you know, Beltway was a safe place, and Texas is a safe place, and all that. But nothing actually really is a safe place. He's the safe place. And because of that, and because he's been faithful, we have experienced, there is no question in my mind, and this is hard to say even out loud, but God has done more in us and through us and with us by trusting him and making this move than had we chosen to stay in the comfort and the routine that we had. And it certainly was not easier, but would choose it 10 times out of 10. And the only way that I think you can say that is because God's presence has been so good. He's been so faithful. He's been so kind. He has shown himself to be good over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And what he has done, I mean, again, and the life that we have watched our kids walk through, again, we're giving you stories of moments that were not easy.
Mhm.
And yet, we've seen God do incredible things. I couldn't be more grateful for what the Lord has done in our kids. He certainly has given he breathed a lot of life into even our own marriage, and given us fresh capacity for leading this place that he called us to. So 100%, it was worth it.
Yeah.
But with the Lord, he's always doing a bajillion things. And so be ready for the ride. I guess it is, say yes to him because he's the safe place, but be ready for the ride.
Yeah. And I think my revelation from Sarah's question, which got me emotional because I was just thinking about how I did not know how stuck in performance land I was. Even though things weren't really that hard for us yet. I mean, we did have 4 kids in 5 years. There's a certain intrinsic challenge to that. But like this was another level for us of risk. And so I didn't realize how much I was leaning on my own strength until I got here. And I feel like now I'm looking back and going, the big things, quote unquote, that we do for God, it doesn't matter what it is. It can be moving across town or moving to a different state or deciding to homeschool. It can be like, who knows what your decision might be, but choosing to step out with the Lord and what he's asking you to do, even if it disrupts your life, is always worth it because what we have discovered, what I feel like I've discovered personally is the big thing to God is faithfulness and a yes to him, no matter what that looks like. So it might look big to the world or small to the world. It might look out in public or it might look hidden, but what is big to God is our obedience and our faith. And also just the call is always boiling down to his presence, being a carrier of his presence.
Yeah.
And I know that for me, I was just not, I was way more focused on what I could do for the Lord than I was on what he could do for me before we moved. And so I feel like it's ever before me now. It's like when you lean on him as much as you need to do whatever he's calling you to do, it keeps you hyper focused on if you're not going, like kind of like what Moses said, if you're not going, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And so I'm just so thankful for that because I see God's pursuit of my heart. I see that he was pursuing Keith's heart and our kids' hearts, and I would not have wanted to miss that.
Yeah.
And so I think we could have had a lot of this revelation without this particular move. He could have called us to do a lot of different things, but like, I think the point is just what is he asking you to do as best as you can discern it, lean in and say yes. And then be honest with him on the journey. Like Keith was saying, like be really forthright with your community and with each other as much as you can be about what you're actually experiencing. And then just watch what he'll do because it exalts him, not us. Like glory belongs to one place. And ultimately, like this has caused us to go like, we need God and we're looking at God. It's like all eyes on the Lord and
big time.
Yeah.
I want to add just to that. If anyone happens to be listening and feeling like, oh, I didn't listen or I didn't obey and I just stayed comfortable or whatever, and I missed it, listen to me. That is a purebred lie from the pit of hell. God is the sovereign king of the universe. So if you feel like you said no at one point and you missed it, listen, he's present today to do new and beautiful things in you. So there's no missing it with God. Like whatever you think you've missed, he is the king. He's sovereign. He's so good. So if you, feel any inclination towards any unhealthy shame of like, I missed, I didn't step out, man, he is your good father. He gives good gifts to his children. He will lead you faithfully. You just say yes today, see what he will do.
Yeah.
And that has, rung so true in us, or, anytime I felt like I've missed it or fell short or whatever, he's just a sovereign king, and he's able to make wrong things right. And that's literally the gospel is, he literally takes the no's and makes them yes. He takes the broken things and makes them whole, takes the wayward paths and makes them straight. That's just what the gospel is. So
It's good.
So powerful. So powerful. I love that. His ways are so much better. They're
Right.
higher than our ways, better than we can ask, think, hope for, or imagine.
Right.
And it's all an adventure. I love that what y'all have described is just intimacy with the Lord. This is what this really boils down to, is leaning in and trusting him in the process and the journey. So thank you guys so much. Jeff, did you have anything to add?
No, you said it's intimacy with the Lord, but it's also, y'all have done such a good job of cultivating conversations with your kids.
Mhm.
And so I know y'all, I mean, you feel that because you get to experience it, but that's hard. And it's super hard when they're teenagers. So
For sure.
so I love, and I know that was work. And I think that's, if you're going to help kids go through them stepping out of their own comfort zone and their own routines and stepping into the yes, like Luke did with his school stuff, it only happens that only happens because you spent the work tilling the ground of conversation and teaching your kids how to do that. And so I think that for parents, I know I was encouraged and challenged a little bit to try to delve even deeper into that with our girls, of like, how do we navigate this? How do I create space for us to have these kind of conversations that when one of my girls is wrestling with a degree program and not knowing what do I do, that they feel like there is a safe space with mom and dad to come to us and go, hey, I know that the world would tell me going in this area is going to help me make a lot more money and I'm going to be more secure and more successful. I feel like God's telling me to do this. Can you help me navigate that? But that conversation only happens at 18 going into college because you spent years teaching that and training that. And so I think for parents, that can be an encouragement and a challenge, because our kids are going to go through these same things. They're going to go through the moves and the decisions and all that.
Right.
It's awesome. Well,
There's a promise from Ezekiel 36 that comes back to my mind as you're saying all that, Geoffrey. There's a scripture in there that says, I will do more good to you than ever before, and then you will know that I'm the Lord. And it's in the context of God rebuilding ruins. And so that rings true. Like what Keith said about, feeling like if we feel like we missed it, or if the enemy's putting shame, or if, your kids are maybe grown and you feel like you didn't have, those conversations, and he's just in the business of still, like you said. I just want to reiterate that. I felt like that was so powerful, just of making all things new and rebuilding ruins. And it's just never too late to like reach out and have those conversations, no matter the life stage you're in.
right.
And because that's what God does with us. He makes safe space for us to have conversation with him.
For sure.
He's always inviting us to encounter him. And so, yeah.
So beautiful. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today and for encouraging Jeff and I both, but also anyone who's listening to this podcast. So we love you guys so much and are just so grateful for you.
Grateful
Thank
for
you
you
for having
guys.
us.
Love y'all.
See you, Robertsons. Love y'all.
Bye.
Bye, you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the Beyond Sundays podcast. We hope you guys have a fantastic day, and we hope you enjoy and have all the fun chasing the goose this week. Let's just ask one question. How can I invite one disruption in my life this week and lean in and see what God may have for you? It's an adventure. So all I want to say to you is let's go. Let's go chase the goose. We hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you back next time. Bye.